what does love mean? Love is such a huge thing. I think it's easy to understand rules because they're written down and we see when we're out of line with them. We see when we're not following them or we are following them. But love is such a large, ambiguous thing. We never know, are we really loving? Are we not loving? Are we doing the right thing? Are we not doing the right thing? Well, the Bible, I think, clearly defines it when it says God is love. So God is the definition of love, period. Anything that falls under love is God. So love for me is not so much of an action as much as it is me imitating who God is. Because God is love. So if I'm imitating God, I'm going to be loving. Right? You would agree that I'm going to be loving. Even in my rules and my giving of lessons and discipline, it's all going to be in love. Because that's how God always acts. He always acts through love. He never does things out of spite or hatred. He does things out of love. And love for me and you, everything he does. This exercise I did with the youth group, we all know the 1 Corinthians 13 passage that describes love. A lot of us have it hanging on our walls at home. You know, a lot of us have it memorized. We have it sewn in places because it's a great definition of love. This is the exercise that I did. It's 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 8a. It says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always perseveres. Love never fails. And that's great, right? Especially since God is love. Now, what's not so great is this exercise. I took out the word love, and I'm going to read it with my name in place, but as I read with my name in place, you guys stick your name in there. And see how far you get before you start feeling guilty. Andrew is patient. Andrew is kind. Andrew does not envy. He does not boast. He is not proud. Andrew is not rude. Andrew is not self-seeking. Keep it down. He is not easily angered. He keeps no record of wrongs. Andrew does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Andrew always protects, always perseveres. Andrew never fails. Yeah, it's pretty... Yeah. Thank you for keeping it calm, Ashley. The youth really laughed it up hard when I read that during that week's lesson. But that's so convicting because I can't even read the first sentence without it being a lie. Andrew is patient. I failed. That's bad. So it's horrible. But that's what I'm trying to achieve, though, is that's what love is. So many times I think we team up ourselves and compare ourselves to the law. Even the Pharisees did it. Look, I keep every letter of the law. And Jesus said, yeah, you're right, you keep every letter of the law, but you have no love. So everything you do is useless. You need to have love tied in with all that you do, or it's worth nothing. You can keep the letter of the law to a T, and if there's no love involved in it, it is zero to God. And that's not what I want to be. So instead of my teaming myself with the law, I look at that passage and I'm like, I got a lot of work to do. It's now, this passage from the book, from Crazy Love book, is actually, unfortunately, something more that I relate with, and I think a lot of us here will also relate with. And it's talking about how most people love. Francis Chan writes, lukewarm people love others, but do not seek to love others as much as they love themselves. Their love of others is typically focused on those who love them in return, like family, friends, and other people they know and connect with. There is little love left over for those who cannot love them back, much less for those who intentionally slight them, whose kids are better athletes than theirs, or with whom conversations are awkward or uncomfortable. Their love is highly conditional and very selective, and generally comes with strings attached. Now, I think I relate a lot more to that than I do to the 1 Corinthians 13 passage. And I'm sure a lot of you do here as well, because it's so easy. It's human nature to love someone who loves us back. I think that's why a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not in love with my spouse anymore. Because they're comparing their love to them if the other person doesn't love them back. Like, no, you love them no matter what. Could you imagine if Jesus loved us that way? He never would have come and died. But while we were still sinners, he came and died for us. While we were still sinners. That's just, not only did he die for us, we killed him. We put him on that cross. And that for me is this, we're to exemplify that love in all our relationships. To our spouses, to our kids, to our friends, and yes, even to our enemies. Because we were enemies of God until we came and accepted him as our Savior. I'm going to read Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 to 47. It says, "You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your brothers, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that?" And that's so true. And so many times we compare ourselves to pagans. Yeah, I'm going to heaven because see them down the street? Yeah, they're definitely going to hell. And God's like, really? Have you looked in your own eye lately? Have you seen the stench in your life? So, love even your enemies. Now, all of you probably have heard here, have seen the bracelets, WWJD, right? What would Jesus do? Great movement. I think it did some. I don't know how much it did. But God challenged me with this other question. What would you do if that person was Jesus? That's a whole different ballgame. What would you do if that person you're dealing with was Jesus? WWJD just focuses on yourself. Now you're focusing on the other person, how to love them. And I believe, to back that up, would be like the Matthew 25 passage where Jesus says, whatever you did to the least of these, you did also to me. The least of these was Jesus. It wasn't the person doing the action, it was the person receiving the action. So right there he's telling us, whatever you're doing to someone else, the least of these, you did to me. Treat the other person how you would treat me. I mean, me like, whoa, there's a lot of things we'll be doing to other people if it was Jesus. I wouldn't say stuff to other people. I wouldn't react a certain way to other people if that was Jesus. And that brings a whole new light on that. And I think it really, really challenges me. And I think there's lots of times where we have the opportunity to even share Christ with others, and we just drop the ball because of our fear and what they might think of us, or we might even like that person. Like, yeah, they don't deserve to hear about Jesus. No, Jesus is too good for them. I mean, how many times have you watched the news, and especially with these wars going on, and you look over and you see someone who's like an enemy of the country, and you think, man, they really need to know about Jesus. A lot of times, man, somebody needs to kill them. I mean, you hear it from, like, Christian radio. I wish someone would take that terrorist out. Let me tell you now, that's not Christian talk. We're to love them. Jesus died even for them. The first time God, I remember this moment, the first time God convicted me of that was when Saddam Hussein was toppled. And I cut out his picture. And here's Saddam Hussein. He looked so pathetic. And I actually had sympathy on the guy. And I'm like, if he doesn't know Jesus, he's going to go to hell. And let me tell you, that was not from me. That was from God, softening my heart right there. Because do we truly believe that Jesus died for everybody? Do we truly believe that? If we do, then we should not be speaking words of hatred towards any people or group of people. Love. Here's another question I want you to think about. Can you truly be a Christian without being in love with Jesus? Now that I explain what love is, can you truly be a Christian without being in love with Jesus? I personally don't think you can, but I mean, you have to wrestle that. I mean, in love with him. And Francis Chan, in his book, he put this one question out there where I think it really challenged you to kind of question, are you in love with Jesus? He says, if you were to die and go to heaven, and everybody was there that you ever wanted to see, I mean, the apostles, your family members that have passed before you, you had all the amazing food you wanted, you had your house, you even had like an amazing car to drive, but Jesus wasn't there, would that be good enough for you? Our initial reaction is, no, that wouldn't be good enough for me. That's our initial reaction, right? But if you start searching deep inside, would it be good enough for me? Because I think a lot of times that's what we're searching for here on earth. A lot of people on earth are searching for paradise, searching for the perfect place. They're working hard to get a better house, to get a better car, to make their life more comfortable. And basically saying, Francis Chan is saying, hey, if that was heaven, would you be okay with that if Jesus wasn't there? And I know for me, I was like, well, maybe. Then I was like, no. Because I'm living on earth hoping that one day to see Jesus again. And if I never get to see him, that would be totally depressing. So for me, I know that's so, like, I need Jesus there. He is the lover of my soul. Just like if you want to see, if you're dating a relationship, you want to see your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or you're married, and you're being away from your spouse, it's hard. Jesus is the lover of our soul. And when we get to heaven, that's the one person I want to see and spend eternity with. In contrast, in actuality, if no one else was there but Jesus, I think I'll be okay with that. Because I'll have Jesus to myself forever. Like, sweet, got so many questions. But, I mean, that would just be the coolest thing. But that's what we need to really ask ourselves. Is Jesus, can you be a Christian and not be in love with Jesus? And that entails so much. So love, as I said before, love is a weapon that actually sets us all free. And it's the weapon Jesus used, as you saw in a video clip, to set us all free from the bondage of sin. And we here in America, we have small persecution, nothing really major. No one really has their lives threatened. We're not being invaded in our homes. We're not going to get arrested for meeting here today. I mean, it's little things. We might get made fun of, our ego might get knocked down a little, but it's not really persecution like we see overseas. Francis Chan, I'm going to show you two examples of persecution, yet love prevailing through it. This book is a story about this guy named Brother Yun. He was from China. Some of you know just persecution in communist China. And he still loves. And this story is it's like out of the New Testament. But the guy's Chinese instead. And so this story, he ends up making a ministry called Back to Jerusalem, and you guys actually looked at that ministry up at backjerusalem.com, and you could donate to it. It's just an amazing ministry. But let me read you the story. It says, Yun was born in 1958 in the southern part of the Henan province in China. When he was 16 years old, with his father dying from stomach and lung cancer and his family nearly starving, Yun met Jesus Christ. Over the years, Yun grew and began to preach the gospel all over the country. The police were constantly tracking him and arresting him more